Today we're going to be going over reloading 9mm ammunition from start to finish. Okay, our first step is going to be to tumble and clean our brass. Now this is just brass that I picked up off the ground, off the range. I'm going to have to sort it first. So now we got all our brass sorted, so now we're going to put it in this drum. Now if you're dry tumbling, it's going to be a little bit different. You're going to put it in your dry tumbler with your dry tumbling media, but for wet tumbling, this is what we'll do. On here. Okay, now this isn't necessary, but I like it. The Let Me Shine. It makes the cases really nice and shiny. Ooh. One tip that I would give you if you're wet tumbling is fill it up full of water before putting in the laundry detergent. That way you don't get bubbles all over the place. Normally I'll use probably a cup that's mostly full, but since I'm not doing very many, just a little bit's fine. Okay, then on this tumbler I'm gonna put the lid on, screw it on tight. Now, if I'm doing a big load, I'll do it for 2.5 hours. For smaller loads, you can get away with like 45 minutes or an hour or something like that. Okay, so I got all the brass dried and it's ready to reload. So the next step that we're going to be doing is setting up the press and getting everything ready. I'm going to be using Hodgkins 700X powder in my 9mm pistol load today. You can use whatever pistol powder you want. Just make sure it's going to work in your gun. Look at your reloading manual. Look at the Hodgkins website, whatever. Okay, so before I start going too crazy, I'm going to make sure that my powder charge is what I think it is. So that's what you need a scale for. So on a progressive press, I'll just put one case in here and then raise it up, let it fill with powder, and then I'll take it over here to the scale, put it in 3.5. So I'm way off from where I want to be. I want it to be 4. So I'm going to adjust this guy. I'm going to unscrew it a little bit and then just repeat. I'll do the exact same thing I just did. And then the other powder that I'm not using, I'll just put it in back up here up top. Okay, so after some fine-tune adjusting, I finally got the 4 grains that I'm looking for. Sometimes I'll do it a couple times, make sure it's right around 4 grains. Now this flaky stuff, sometimes I'm plus or minus a 1/10 of a grain, and in my guns I found that that's fine. Again, if this is the very first time that you're loading up a round, what you need to do is you need to load on, and your reloading manual will give you a range, or the website will, and you just start at the low end and work your way up. What I'm doing right here, 4 grains, this works great for my guns. I shoot a Springfield Hellcat and an XDM, and I've shot it in some SIG and some Taurus guns, and it's worked like a champ. But it may not work in your gun, so don't just blindly do what I'm doing. Okay, so now that I got the powder set up, the next stage is I'm going to make sure that my bullet is being seated the right distance. So I'm going to expand the case mouth here so I can actually get a bullet in, and I'm going to put a bullet in here, seat it. Now note that there's no powder in this right now, so I might, because I know that I might have to get that bullet out of there. And I'm going to crimp it. So this is what my end result would be. So now I'm going to grab my calipers and measure it. Okay, so this cartridge is 1.13. You can look in your reloading manual and it will give you the max COL, which is the max case overall length. You don't want to be longer than that. So this one is obviously, it's a little bit long because I write down all of my case lengths that I'm looking for after I find one that works great in my gun, and I'm looking for 1.105 plus or minus a few thousandths. So I'm going to adjust my seating die here and reseat it. So to adjust the die, I'm just going to I backed it off a little bit, and now I'm going to screw it in just a little bit more and then tighten it up again and put it back in here and just redo those 2 steps. Now it was just a barely a minor adjustment, almost did nothing. And then we'll come over here and we're going to measure it again. It's a little bit long still, and I'll just repeat this process over and over until I get the bullet length that I'm looking for. Okay, so this bullet is, this is what I have it adjusted to now. It's 1.107, which is only 0.02 longer than what I was shooting for, so that is well within what I'm trying to do. So now I have my powder set, I have my bullet seating stuff set. Okay, so for your sizing die, you'll want it to get so it pretty much just sits all the way down onto your shell plate, and that'll size it and deprime it correctly. And then for your case expander die, you'll have to play with that a little bit, but for mine it happens to be just about the same distance that I'm looking for it to go. And so now I have everything set up here, so now I just got to load it with primers and start reloading. To load the press with primers, you'll take your primers and you'll take one of these primer flipper things and you'll put all the primers in it on the side with all the grooves, and then you'll just shake it until all the primers are facing the right direction. And then you're going to put it on the other side on, flip it over, and then there you go. And then you're going to take this guy that comes with your press. If you're doing a progressive press. If you have a single stage press, you're going to have to use a hand priming tool, and then you go and pick all these guys up. Okay, so now we got all the primers in here. So what you want is you want the cup facing up, so that's why we have to flip them around. So right now they're all facing down, but I'm going to flip them over again, so now they're all facing up. I'm going to come over here to the priming tube, pull this pin out, all the primers will fall down in there, make sure I get them all down there. And now I'm ready to roll. So you'll see that when I go up with this guy goes back, grabs a primer, and now a primer is ready to go in. And then you push forward and it would go in. If you've never reloaded before and you're just starting out with a progressive press, make sure that you do everything right and you follow proper safety procedures. All your reloading manuals and stuff, they'll recommend that you wear a pair of safety glasses, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And there's just so much going on at once. Like the progressive press in a previous video, I was talking about how it does one thing at a time, so it's really easy to pay attention to what's going on. Now with a progressive press, you'll see here that there's a ton going on. So right now I just punched the primer and it got sized. Okay, I'm going to go down, I'm going to put the next one in, I'm going to push forward and put a primer in. Okay, now I'm going to go up again. I just again sized one, punched out a primer, and I expanded the mouth. Okay, I'm going to go down again, push in another primer. If you forget to go forward, which you probably will several times, you'll forget to put a primer in, and then powder will start coming out the back of your case, and sometimes you won't catch it in there and it'll go all over the place. Okay, now this time I got 3 cases in there. Even more has happened. I just filled it with powder, I expanded the die, I sized it, and punched out a primer. Okay, we're going to go down again, push forward. Okay, this time I have to put a case and a bullet in. So even more stuff is going to be happening. Now if you think you forgot to put in primer, it never hurts to go forward again. It's not going to hurt anything, so that's fine. Okay, I'm going to go up one more time. Okay, I just seated the bullet, put powder in, expanded the mouth, sized and deprimed, all in one press. Put a new primer in. Okay, and now for the final round, I just I crimped it, seated the bullet, put powder in, expanded the mouth, deprimed, and sized it. So now we're gonna go down. Sometimes you'll have to fight it a little bit. Sometimes the crimping die can get a little bit stuck in there. That's not too much of a problem. So now with every single stroke that I do, I'm going to be doing a bullet. But again, a lot is going on. So then at this point, I mean, you're pretty much ready to go. If you want to double check, make sure your case length isn't too bad, feel free. That one looked fine. So yeah, just go for it. It's not a bad idea to just double check everything as you're going. So now you're pretty much ready just to go for it and reload a bunch of rounds. I would recommend, especially when starting out, don't listen to music, don't listen to a podcast, don't have anybody else in the room chatting with you. You need to really stay focused and make sure everything is going well, making sure no dies are coming loose, make sure your shell plate's not coming loose, make sure you're putting powder in, make sure you're not double charging. If you double charge, you'll blow up your gun. So just really stay vigilant, especially when you're starting out, just because there's so much going on. So that's pretty much it as far as reloading 9mm goes from start to finish. I'm going to bust out a ton of these. I got about 600 primers over there, and I'm planning on doing them all within the next couple hours. Every once in a while, you'll come across a brand of 9mm that the primer either won't come out very easily, and then especially won't go in very easily. And that's because there are a handful of 9mm cases that if you just pick them up off the range that have a crimp. So like I said in earlier movies, just grab a Phillips head, put it in an impact driver or drill, put it in the primer pocket. Probably wearing safety glasses while doing that. And then, now I don't think it'll focus, but it'll make it so you can now get the primer to go in. Before I pushed forward and it wouldn't go in, it went in just fine there. 100 more rounds